On today's Locked On Jayhawks, KU in the Guaranteed Rate Bowl against UNLV. We preview the game, UNLV scouting report, matchups of the game, and more to get you ready for KU's finale of 2023.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Derek Johnson. You can hear me as well Monday through Friday from 3 to 6 p.m. on KLWN in Lawrence with Rock Chalk Sports Talk. Thanks for making Locked On Jayhawks your first listen every day. We are free and available anywhere that you get your podcasts, including on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe to the show. On today's episode of things, we're previewing the Guaranteed Rate Bowl, Kansas versus UNLV, the finale for the 2023 season for Kansas. So let's just get right into it. We'll start with our overview, top storyline, series history, UNLV scouting report. We get to our matchups of the game and our Hawks to Soar KU players we think can stand out and have a good game for KU in this one. It's a short series. 1-1 is the overall series between these two teams. It is tied up there. UNLV won in 2002, 31-20, and then Kansas won the most recent meeting, which was 20 years ago, 46-24 in 2003. I guess if you want to have some fun with the throwback box score, the stats in that one, Bill Whittemore had 335 total yards, 4 total scores. Clark Green ran it 19 times for 117 yards with 70 added receiving yards, and Gabriel Toomey had a 29-yard pick six. So there's some old names for maybe some KU football fans out there. Obviously, they're going to play again next year, which becomes kind of an interesting tidbit for both the series and a storyline. This will be the third game of the season for KU. I guess who knows whether this game is going to be played at Memorial Stadium? Is it going to be played at Arrowhead Stadium? I don't know where exactly it would be played. So I guess maybe this one ends up with a bigger crowd. I don't know. We'll see. But that is certainly weird that you're playing the same team twice in the next 4 games when they're a non-conference opponent. Now, as far as other storylines coming into this one, KU's obviously looking for their first bowl win since 2008. So it's been a long time since KU's got a victory in a bowl game. In fact, KU has 6 bowl wins all time. So you're looking for number 7 overall. That means you have a real opportunity to do something that not a lot of other teams in the KU football program history have done. This would just be the 7th one if you could accomplish that bowl win. KU looking for their first 9-win season since 2007. So it'd be 16 years since your last 9-win season. Obviously, 07 was a 12-win season, but still. Before that, to get to 9 or more wins, you have to go back to 1995. And then before that, the previous 9 or more win season was 1968 when they went 9-2. They were 9-1 and then lost in the Orange Bowl. Obviously, played less games back then. But in total, KU has only had 5 seasons where they've won 9 or more games in program history. 07 with 12, 95 with 10, 1905 with 10, 68 with 9, and then 1908 they went 9-0. Who could forget the undefeated? I think they should claim a national title for that. Undefeated 1908. Why not? Other schools are doing it anyway. This would be the opportunity for you to have your 6th season where you've won 9 or more games. Again, something the program hasn't done a ton of, which makes it special for your program. And obviously you want to build to a point where eventually these, 8-win seasons, bowl wins, 9-win seasons become more of that's what you're doing every year. That's tradition than it is the outlier years. But right now that is the case. And you're trying to establish that baseline. This is kind of a huge deal if KU is able to do that. Top storyline here, obviously the quarterback position just in general, because for Jason Bean, he'll be starting the game. And this will be the last game of his, KU career, right? And it's been a very interesting career. Obviously, he started his career in North Texas, transfers into Kansas. He's the starter right off the bat in the Lance Leipold era. Has a couple good performances. Like I remember early in the year, they went on the road against the top 25 Coastal Carolina team, and he looked pretty good. So showed some flashes. Then he had some down moments. Then eventually gets injured. Jalen Daniels takes over. Eventually, he has to take over last year. Has some ups and downs again, but he gets KU bowl eligible. Then this year, he has to take over again, and he beats Oklahoma. He helps you win all these games. For a guy who was close to not coming back into this last season this year, for him to decide to come back and then have the season he did, and now, pop up in a lot of career top 10 lists for KU and passing records, for him to get the opportunity to, put the stamp on his KU career, I think is really cool. And I think he's played well enough this year that, I don't know if he'd get drafted or anything. There's very few quarterbacks that get drafted every year, right? The top guys go in the first round, and then outside of that, you'll see a couple guys maybe go in the mid rounds. But like, I think he's played well enough to earn a shot at like a training camp as a camp invite. Maybe he's played well enough to, even play if that doesn't work out in like the USFL or the XFL or the Canadian Football League. Like, which I don't know if that was the case coming into the year, but do we get to see him? And, we will see him. What do we get to see him, play as? Like, is he leaving it all out on the line? What does it look like and everything? Obviously, last time we saw him in the Cincinnati game, he was excellent. And then beyond that, just the quarterback position, like, do we hypothetically see Jalen Daniels at all? If it's a close game, it's whatever. I think you owe it to Jason Bean. You keep riding it out with him. Let's say hypothetically, because, the line on this game is projected for Kansas to win by double figures. Let's say this is a game where Kansas is able to handle things. And let's say the game is, 38-14 or something like that. And you got 12 minutes left in the game. At that point, do you give him the curtain call with Jason Bean, and do you say, hey, this game doesn't count against if we want to redshirt someone? Do we throw Jalen Daniels in there for a drive or two in that exact type of scenario and be like, okay, now he's here for next game? I don't expect something, or for next year. I don't expect something like that to happen, but I think it'd be kind of cool if you did, and it would make, I think, the fan base feel a lot better about where Jalen's at headed into next year. I don't even know if that's a possibility or can happen. I don't expect it to happen, but if that exact scenario happened, I would like it if it were possible. But yeah, really cool to see Jason Bean get kind of the send-off game here. Final game for any players. Obviously this applies for any of the players who are going to graduate, right? Whether it's, guys who have made Lawrence a one-year stop like a Devin Phillips, or, more long-term players who transferred in for multiple years like Rich Miller and Craig Young, players who have been through the program their entire career like Mason Fairchild, right? Going back to Jason Bean with a former transfer in here for multiple years. Obviously, it can apply for guys who are going to transfer at the end of this. Obviously, it can apply for guys who might go to the NFL draft after this. But, seeing some of those guys for the last time. And obviously, a side story of this is players we're not going to see for the last time, which are some of the opt-outs and transfers. No Gage Keys, who transferred to Auburn. So one of your defense tackles gone. That just means a heavy dose of Devin Phillips, Tommy Dunn, DJ Withers, maybe see some Caleb Taylor and Keenan Caldwell a little bit more than normal. Austin Booker is opted out of the game. We had that episode earlier. Check it out with Locked On Jayhawks. Is he transferring? Is he going to go to the NFL draft? I think right now the idea is the NFL draft, but either way, he's not seemingly going to be a part of the program anymore. He's not playing in this game, obviously. So Hayden Hatcher now becomes a starter. More playing time for him, more playing time for Patrick Joyner, more playing time for, Dylan Brooks, something like that. And obviously that's an opportunity for Dylan Brooks, who's kind of a young guy to establish himself in a very real way headed into next year. Tanaka Scott obviously transferred. Do we see Keaton Kubeka? Do we see one of the young receivers get a target or two in this game? Dominick Puni opting out to go to the NFL, to where Calvin Clements could get the start at the left tackle spot as just a true freshman and a local kid from Free State. What about Bryce Cabledew? Seems like he's kind of injured. Maybe he plays, maybe he doesn't. If he doesn't, then seems like we're going to see Armaj Reed Adams at right tackle. And how is he going to look at more of a tackle as opposed to a guard, which I do think he got some reps at over the course of the season at different points. So yeah, certainly some personnel changes there. Obviously the coaching change up because your offensive coordinator not coaching for this game. He's at Penn State. Now Jim Zabrowski, your former quarterback coach, now co-offensive coordinator, is calling play. So a lot of differences for KU coming into this game. For UNLV, their side of things, they did lose one of their safeties who committed to Baylor. They lost one of their rotational DNs who played well in rotational snaps, but he was only like a second or third string. And then they lost some other backups, like a fourth string running back, backup receiver, stuff like that. That certainly takes away from the game a little bit. But also from the Kansas point of view, it does lead to some cool storylines. Like, it's going to be exciting to see Calvin Clements plays. If he plays really well as a true freshman, you're going to feel really excited headed in next year. As far as the UNLV scouting report, they are 9-4 on the season. Key games of note, they beat Vanderbilt. That was that one game that preceded the KU Nevada game that forced the KU Nevada game. Like, people didn't see it until midway through the first quarter, but UNLV did at least prevent it from going to like overtime. So they won that game. They also won at Nevada 45-27. So they beat them by more than you did. They beat Wyoming by 20, good team in Wyoming, and they beat Air Force on the road by 4. They lost their last 2 games, though. One to San Jose State, who was a bowl team, by 6. The other one, they kind of got crushed by Boise State in the Mountain West Conference Championship by 24. The other 2 losses they had earlier in the year, Fresno State by 7, good team there, and then Michigan 35-7, which means they actually played the Wolverines better than Nebraska did, Minnesota did, Indiana did, Michigan State did, so that's not even like that bad of a loss there. They're averaging 34.3 points per game. That leads the Mountain West. They're 5th in yards per play in the conference, 6th in yards per carry, 3rd in yards per pass, and they're top 40 overall as a unit on ESPN's SP+, including being 6th in passer efficiency. So middle of the pack in the Mountain West in some of those numbers. Defensively, 27 points allowed per game. That is 7th in the Mountain West. They are 8th in the conference in yards allowed per play, 5th in yards allowed per carry, 9th in yards allowed per pass, and they're barely inside the top 100 on ESPN's SP Plus for defensive efficiency. Really strong special teams unit. They're 1st in the Mountain West in field goal percentage, PAT percentage. They're 3rd in the Mountain West in net yards per punt, 2nd in yards per punt return, 1st in yards per kick return. Very, very good special teams unit and have one of the best kickers in the entire country. Let's get to our matchups of the game and Hawks to Soar, players to watch for KU on this episode of Locked on Jayhawks. We are brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, matchups of the game. First down, KU passing on early downs. Kansas likes to run on first down, and that'll continue to happen in this game, I would imagine, though it was Jim Zebrowski who is the quarterback's coach. And we heard from Lance Leipold at a Hawk Talk last week that he said Jim Zebrowski is a very aggressive play caller, and he likes to be aggressive in going forward on fourth down. So keep that in mind. Now, I don't know who makes the ultimate decision on fourth down. Is that Lance Leipold making that decision? Is that the OC making that decision? Either way, kind of interesting in how that goes. But I would think it would behoove Kansas to throw it a bit more than normal on early downs in this game. And again, that doesn't mean abandon the run or every time, because running is a strength for you. You do need to establish the run. And guess what? If you run the ball well, you're going to throw the ball well in those early downs even better, because then you're going to keep them on their toes, so to speak. UNLV ranks just 73rd in EPA per dropback defensively. So they haven't been a great pass defense. And more so, UNLV ranks 97th in early down success rate defensively, which means they have been one of the bottom, I don't know, whatever that is, like 35 defenses in the country in early down success. They have shown a weakness giving up big passing plays early and down the distances. This is obviously going to be the final game for Jason Bean. Let him let it rip, because I think Kansas can have a big advantage there. Second down, Kansas defense versus a scrambling quarterback. This time last year, KU did not have things go so well against a scrambling quarterback, against a mobile quarterback in their bowl game, the Liberty Bowl last year. KJ Jefferson for Arkansas ran for 130 yards in that game, 2 rushing touchdowns, right? So that didn't go well. Jaden Maeva, not as good of a runner as KJ Jefferson. He's a solid runner at it. He's more of someone who, you know, he'll get it when he needs to, but it's not the primary part of his game. But he is mobile enough. He has 261 rushing yards this year, 3 rushing touchdowns. So modest to solid numbers, but not ones that jump off the page. But he's had decent games when the opportunity has presented itself. He's had 6 games with 28 or more rushing yards. Keep in mind, in college too, you're losing yards on sacks. So, you know, that would be even better. He has a high of 40 rushing yards, and he's been in that 30 to 40 range, kind of a decent amount. Here is the rushing totals allowed to opposing quarterbacks for KU this year. Jacob Clark, Missouri State, had 36. His season average was 19, so he was up 17. Luke Altmaier, 70 yards. His season average was 31, so he was up 39. Brendan Lewis, 58 yards against you. His season average, 41, so he was up 17. From there, the KU defense, maybe after 2 weeks later, it started to get better. Keaton Slovis, he was minus 24 Season average -5, so that was a good job keeping him under. Quinn Ewers had 40 yards. His season average only 2, so he was 38 over his normal average. But from there, you did a good job. Timmy McClain only had 5 yards. He averaged 17 a game. Alan Bowman had -2, averaged 1. Dylan Gabriel did have 64 yards rushing. He came in averaging 31. Rocco Becht was at -5. He came in averaging 6. Baron Morton was at -11. Will Howard was at 18. Emory Jones was at 61. Basically, total it all up. Kansas gave up 263 yards to quarterbacks running the football this year, which if you compare to how those quarterbacks did on average, basically quarterbacks had +90 in terms of if you just said, okay, this is how many yards they'd average, and based on their average, you would expect them to have this many yards exactly. Quarterbacks were about 90 yards over that average. So about 8 yards more than they average per game on the ground. So honestly, that's better than I thought it would be after going through the numbers, but it still does show on average that they're scrambling quarterbacks are doing more, or just quarterbacks in general are on average running better than what their season average is against this team, even if it's by a little bit. But they've done a better job at it. Certainly something to keep in mind for this game against Maeva. Specifically, where it could have a big impact is, you get a 3rd and 6, quarterback scrambles for the first down. That brings us to our 3rd down matchup, getting off the field on 3rd down. UNLV is first in the Mountain West at 50.26% on 3rd down conversions offensively. What's interesting is they attempted double-digit 3rd downs more than anyone else in the Mountain West. So they got a lot of them too. That means they're an offense that kind of had to convert 3rd downs, which means you're going to have opportunities to get them off. But KU is only 10th in the Big 12 in 3rd down conversion defense. They've not been great at this. And if we want to, convert some of those national numbers here, what's scary is UNLV is 18th in the country in 3rd and 4th down success rate offensively. Kansas is just 111th in 3rd and 4th down success rate on defense. Now, on the flip side, UNLV is 2nd in the Mountain West in 3rd down defense at 35.6%. So they've been good on 3rd downs the other side. Kansas is 4th in 3rd down conversion offense. On paper, UNLV has the better team stats here on the 3rd and 4th downs. Again, theirs is versus worse competition in the Mountain West than yours was in the Big 12. So, realistically, maybe they're more equal, but certainly something to keep in mind in this game because, if you do allow them to go rogue on those, money downs, that's how they stay in the game or pull off the upset. All right, 4th down here, red zone battles. UNLV is 1st in the Mountain West in red zone offense. KU is 14th in the Big 12 in red zone defense. So this is a strength for UNLV versus a weakness for Kansas. Meanwhile, UNLV is only 7th in the Mountain West in red zone defense. KU is 9th in the Big 12 in red zone offense. So that's more of both teams were kind of average at it on that side of the field. If Kansas can even turn this into an equal in this game, right, have the same percentage as them on red zone efficiency, on touchdown scoring percentage in the red zone, I think you feel great about it. Now, as far as our player matchup, we're going to go Devin Neal versus Jackson Woodard. Woodard is a linebacker for UNLV. He actually was at Arkansas last year, transferred to UNLV along with Barry Odom, who's their head coach, who was the defense coordinator at Arkansas last year, did not coach in the bowl, though. He took the UNLV job. So Woodard goes over to UNLV with him, and he was the leading tackler for the Rebels this year. 113 tackles, more than 30 than anyone else on the team, so by far the leading tackle. He also had 8 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks, 4 pass deflections, and an interception. Devin Neal, meanwhile, he's been obviously unreal all season long, but the back half of this season has been even more spectacular. He's had 100 or more rushing yards in 3 straight games. His last 7 games, he has had 110 rushing yards per game versus the first 5, 88 rushing yards per game. So both numbers are actually still good, but 110 over the last 7. From a history perspective, he's already in 5th in career rushing yards. He could move ahead of Laverne Smith if he gets like 69, 70 rushing yards. For single season, he'd need 141 rushing yards to move into 3rd by June Henley, 234 to move above Tony Sands, 249 to pass John Corder. So if he does have an unbelievable bowl game, maybe he could have the single season record for most rushing yards for KU. Now, we know they rotate backs. I don't expect that to happen, but who knows? What if it's, bowl game, close game, and maybe it does end up being his last game. Maybe it's not. Who knows? And they're just like, hey, we're going to give you 20, 30 carries and let them have it. I don't know. Would be kind of interesting. We're going to finish up here with Hawks to Soar. Jayhawks, I think, can stick out in the matchup and have big-time games. This is Locked On Jayhawks, and thanks for tuning into the show. You can find our show anywhere you get your podcast. We'll have a recap of the Guaranteed Rate Bowl coming at you on Wednesday. Don't forget, you can check out our recap of the KU Yale game, some other football content, talking about the offseason ahead, Austin Booker, plenty of other stuff with the show, anywhere that you get your podcasts here. So right now, by the way, the odds on FanDuel, KU is minus 12.5. They are minus 550 money line, and the over-under 67.5. That means that you're looking at a lot of points. That means that, I don't know, FanDuel is basically projecting like 40 to 28. Is that, yeah, something like that, like, 40 to 27, somewhere in that range. So could be a lot of points for Kansas. That means that if player props come out, as I'm recording right now, they're not out, but maybe they'll be out in the morning. It means could be a lot of points, could be a lot of touchdowns, could be a fun one to bet on some of the player props. Anyway, some of those players you could look at. I'm going to go with Devin Neal. I know I had him in the player matchup. I'm going with him in Hawks to Soar too. UNLV has given up 2+ rushing touchdowns in 8 of their games this season. They've also given up 3+ rushing touchdowns in 4 games this season. So could this be a Devin Neal, multiple touchdown game? Now, there's always the possibility that it's because KU's so balanced. Could be passing touchdown, could be Jason Bean running in. Daniel Highshaw's a hammer at the goal line. He could score. I think this might be a good one to, maybe throw Devin Neal to score 2+ touchdowns. I don't know. Maybe you can even get some crazy odds, 3+ touchdowns. But I think at the very least, KU's running backs, look for them to score TDs in this one. On the defensive side of the ball, I'm going to go with Devin Phillips for a double dose of Devin here. We got Devin Neal, Devin Phillips. Phillips got hurt in the Iowa State game. He then missed the Texas Tech game. And I think you missed him in that game with the start of that one, how they were able to run the ball, though the way you stopped him running the ball the last 3 quarters. But anyway, now with the time off for Phillips, because he did come back after that for like the last couple games, but with the time off, I'd imagine he is more to a healthy version of himself, the more 100% version of himself, maybe the 90% version, right? And obviously without Gage Keys after he transferred, maybe even more snaps to be had for Devin Phillips in this game. He's been an underrated player all year long for the KU defense, and UNLV's interior offensive line has not been great. Pro Football Focus grades for the offensive guards for UNLV, 63 and 57. The center for UNLV, 57. I think Devin Phillips can have a big game and have a nice send-off for KU. That'll do it for this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. You can find our show anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe. Thanks for joining us today. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year. We're about to get to that, and we'll have a KU UNLV Guaranteed Rate Bowl recap after the game or on Wednesday morning.
You are Locked On.